Okay, hello. Today I just wanted to give a brief introduction to astrophotography. I'm not going to get too much into the nitty-gritty of it today. I'm just going to go over a little bit of the hardware that you need to get started for this type of photography if you're, pretty serious about it and you really want to get into it. If you're like me, you really enjoy nighttime photography because there's really nothing else like it. Shots of the Milky Way and getting star trails and different things like that. There's just nothing else you can do like that. But you just need to make sure you have the right type of equipment. So first of all, I can't really show you because I'm using it right now with the other camera, but have a good solid tripod. And I use an RC2 ball mount system. Also have a panning base. It's good to have a panning base that it has the complete 360 degrees marked on it, that you can, because then when you lock your camera down, you can just pan the base and you keep your camera completely centered. So if you're doing like a panorama of the Milky Way, that way it makes stitching them together a lot easier because your camera stays perfectly centered, and the more centered it is, the better it's going to turn out, the easier it's going to be in post-processing. So the way I go about this is, of course, like I said, tripod, RC2 head mount system, panning base, and for a camera I use a Canon 6D. It's a full frame, 35 millimeter sensor. Pretty much any full frame camera out there today will work really good for you. The Canon 6D is one of the best ones for astrophotography. Nikon has some good ones also. The Nikon D610, or actually if you really want to shuck out some money, it's kind of expensive, but Nikon actually has an astrophotography camera. The Nikon D810A. That camera is actually specialized for astrophotography, and it's not the best for other types of photography, but it excels at astrophotography. It's also pretty expensive. It's about $3,700. A Canon 6D, however, is not that bad. You can buy one of these brand new for about $1,400, which is pretty reasonable. If you look around on eBay, you can find them cheaper than that. For lenses, I like to go with Rokinon. Rokinon lenses are pretty good. They're some of the best prime lenses you can get on the market. I like to have, I use two lenses, and I use the 14 millimeter when I want to get like a really wide field view and get like, the main part of the Milky Way plus a good foreground element. Say there's like a lighthouse or something like that, and I want to have the Milky Way behind it and stuff like that, and I want to get all that. The Rokinon 14mm f2.8, this is a very good lens for that. It's got a bulbous front element, so it's kind of hard to get filters on here, but for nighttime photography you don't really need filters too much. So I use that lens. One of these you can buy for about $300. One thing I would recommend though, when you get one of these lenses, they're a great lens, optically very good, but just be careful. I had to return this lens twice before I got a good copy. The first two copies I had, the focal plane wasn't right. So, I tested it by shooting against a barn wall, and I'm glad I did. But once I got a good copy, it was very good. The other one I use is the Rokinon 35mm f1.4. And this one's even better than the 14mm 2.8. This one is excellent for doing panoramas of the Milky Way. So if you want to get an even wider field of view of the Milky Way and you want to get better optical quality for bigger prints, this lens will do a better job than that one will. It's going to be a little more work in post-process, but it'll be worth it. One of these you can buy for about $400. Which is pretty reasonable. And Rokinon lenses, they're all completely manual. The aperture, ring is right here, so that's where you control the aperture, and it's manual focus. But when you're photographing the night sky, you know, you got a manual focus anyway. So I'll get into some of the nitty-gritty about, you know, in some later lessons about techniques in the field and stuff like that. But today I just wanted to cover some of the gear that you need. So that's what I recommend. Rokinon lenses, the 14mm 2.8 and the 35 1.4. Those are two of the best lenses to get started with. If you don't want to spend too much money, but you want to be able to, you know, get the most done for the least amount of money. And the 6D, this is a very good camera. Also, get a good L bracket, because with an L bracket, I have an RC2 L bracket, because then you can lock it down on your tripod like that, so it's nice and solid. And then with the panning base, you just set your camera up when you're in the field, and you can just, and when you have, that's the nice thing, that's why you want the panning base, because when you have the panning base, you can measure how many degrees you're turning every time, so you can make sure you have plenty of overlap for every shot, so later on when you're stitching them together and stuff, and that goes pretty easily. But I'll get into that kind of stuff later on, but today I just wanted to give a little introduction on that. So, alright, well, get out there and take some pictures.